Now, what's especially tragic, if you will, about this deterioration of Jewish-Muslim relations is that actually it was the Muslims who restored the Jews to Jerusalem. Can you guys walk us through that, if that's okay?
The very interesting thing is that when Hazrat Umar, the second Caliph of Islam, when he conquered Jerusalem and he entered into Jerusalem.
And this is like 7th century, right?
Yeah, this is like...
this is soon after the passing of the Holy Prophet.
Yes, 640...
Just before that, yeah.
3, I think.
Just
something like that. Before that, even. 638.
Late 630s.
That's fine.
Late 630s.
Yeah.
So, basically they conquered Jerusalem and vast... areas of both the Roman and Persian empires.
Yeah.
They defeated the Persian Empire within a matter of a few years.
Yeah.
And when he entered into Jerusalem, Sophronius, who was the Christian patriarch of Jerusalem at the time and under whose kind of rule Jerusalem was operating as a city-state at the time, as an outpost of the Christian Empire, the Byzantine Empire. So Sophronius invited him in. They came in. He took him around the holy sites, and he showed him the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And he said, come and pray in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And Hazrat Umar, peace be on him, may Allah be pleased with him, he refused. He said, wherever I pray for the first time in Jerusalem, that will become a mosque. So he prayed outside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and indeed the Muslims built a mosque where he prayed. And then he went and he said, well, where is the Jewish holy sites? And he was taken to the threshing floor, which was the base of where the temple used to be. The second temple used to be 600 years earlier, because remember, this is 7th century we're talking about, and it was 1st century that the second temple was destroyed. So the temple hadn't existed for 600 years. So he went to the threshing floor, and it had become a rubbish dump. So the Christians had been using the ancient Jewish holy site as a rubbish dump.
Wow.
And he started cleaning it with his own hands, and Sophronius got really embarrassed by this. Okay. And then they all started pitching in, and then within a matter of like a few 10 to 15 minutes, they'd clean the site of rubbish. Right. And then he said, well, I want to meet some of the Jews in the city. And Sophronius said, oh, well, we got rid of all the Jews too.
Yeah.
And then he turned to Abdullah ibn Salam, who was one of the Jewish converts to Islam. Hazrat Umar turned to one of his Jewish converts to Islam. He said, bring me 80 Jewish families to repopulate Jerusalem, because we cannot have a Jerusalem without Jews.
Okay.
So the Muslims did exactly the opposite of what the Zionists in Israel are doing currently. They're trying to get rid of their Muslim population, and it was the Muslims who repopulated Israel with Jews.
Wow.
Palestine with Jews.
And I guess the wider moral to all of this, a lot of people say that they're put off by religion because of the conflicts between them. And I think a lot of the prophecies around the end times and a lot of the thoughts from Christians, Jews, and even mainstream Muslims are that a Messiah will come that's bloody and that will destroy people of other faiths. Whereas the true Muslim understanding, as understood by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and as explained by this story that you've narrated, is that actually Islam is extremely pluralistic, and it doesn't monopolize salvation. It doesn't monopolize blessings of God.
Yeah.
And it really kind of seeks to build strong relationships with people of other faiths. And also it seeks to really say that actually there's no compulsion in religion. So people are free to believe how they want to believe, and laws and rules shouldn't be imposed upon them. And I think if more people had that understanding about religion and what it truly is at its core, then I think they'd be much more taken in by it and impressed by it than they are.
Very beautifully put.
The thing is that people don't use religion for its own sake. They don't see religion as a vehicle for spirituality. What they begin to see it as is a vehicle to manipulate other human beings and to obtain power, land, and wealth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's when that religion becomes a weapon and it itself becomes a victim. The religion becomes a victim of human ambition and greed. In the same way as the West went to war in Iraq and other countries on the pretext of democracy and spreading freedom. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with democracy and freedom, but they misused the sentiments of the population to support an illegal war.
Yeah.
Which was about power and land.
And this is what we see the Temple Association people try to do when they're trying to get into the Israeli parliament.
Yeah.
Very good point. That's a very good point. That's what the temple movement's all about.
Temple movement, yeah.
Is to use religion to obtain the land.
Yeah.
But the Caliph, Hazrat Umar, the second Caliph of Islam, he showed the opposite. He was in charge. He was the head of the Muslims. And yet it was obvious that he wasn't trying to attain any more power or converts or any of that. He demonstrated the exact opposite mentality even while he was in charge.
And it's tragic as well, because it's a clear proof of the prophet Jesus's being the true Messiah, because the same character that he fought against then is actually continuing in the modern day Zionists, right? In the Jewish establishment, if you will, because they are using religion for worldly ends, which is exactly what Jesus came and said. You expect a worldly king. I'm a spiritual king. I'm here to purify you spiritually, whereas you want me to come and, grab the wealth of the Romans. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you spiritual wealth. And they rejected him for that, and they try to kill him for that.
Yeah.
So, we have a direct proof of Jesus' truth through the behavior of the Zionists today.
Yeah, well, it's because he diagnosed the problem correctly, because obviously he was from God. But it's that their problem wasn't that they were worldly dispossessed, that they had been dispossessed of their worldly riches and their worldly government. The problem, that was an outcome of their spiritual condition. So you couldn't fix the worldly problem without fixing the spiritual condition. You had to fix the spiritual condition first, then God will give you the blessings of the world. That's how religious teachings go. Go towards God, he will give you this world and the hereafter, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing is now happening with the Muslims.
Yeah.
The Muslims have rejected the Ahmadiyya Muslim community's founder broadly, not all of them. The ones who have accepted are now Ahmadi Muslims, right? But those who have rejected, which are the majority still, they rejected him on the pretext that, well, you haven't made the whole world Muslim yet.
Yeah.
You haven't destroyed our enemies. You haven't delivered us fortune and wealth. So the exact same reason for the Muslims rejecting their Messiah is the same reason as why the Jews rejected their Messiah. And that kind of religious nationalism, where religion is used as a tool of national power, it is in actual fact, just as the temple was the symbol and the idol of the Jewish people at the time, the religious establishment, and it was destroyed, so too will the idol of this age be destroyed for the Muslims. And that actually already did happen. 40 years after Jesus came, the temple was destroyed. 40 years after Mirza Ghulam Ahmad died in 1908. What did you have in 1948?
Yeah,
you had the land of Israel was taken away from the Muslims, and you had the land of Kashmir was taken away from the Muslims.
Yeah.
The birthplace of Jesus and the death place of Jesus.
Right. And we have a video on that, on the death of Jesus, which we'll put up.